fellow patriots, people of faith, conservatives, libertarians, those who believe in the vision and creation of our founding fathers and are willing to do something to preserve it. What is the biggest threat to our democracy today? As a lawyer of 46 years in the trenches, a trial lawyer, I can tell you it's federal judges. Not all of them, but primarily the ones in the District of Columbia and in New York City. And of course, you can see what's going on today. These judges think they're above the law. They go to White House correspondence dinners with the beautiful people. They put on their tuxedos. They bring their wives. They bring their girlfriends. They bring their boyfriends. They bring everyone, sometimes even their dogs, frankly. And they think that they're special, that they're better. They gave themselves immunity. It doesn't exist in the Constitution, doesn't exist in a statute. They took it from ancient England when the king gave immunity to his judges so they could rubber stamp edicts that were totally unjust, which then caused us to wage a revolution, our first revolution. But we're in the second American Revolution now. It has already begun. Today on Capitol Hill, they're holding hearings on Supreme Court justices and the fact that they don't adhere to any code of judicial conduct. Lower court judges are required to. However, that's a sham too, because who enforces the code of judicial conduct? Other judges in the same courthouse. They circle the wagons. In my 46 years, I have filed a number of what you call judicial council complaints against judges who have acted unethically in federal courts in Washington, D.C., and sometimes elsewhere. Never once have any of them even been investigated. You'll get back a letter months later, which are a complete sham, which avoid the issues, which say we're doing nothing, because we found nothing. They're like the three monkeys: hear no evil, see no evil, do no evil, because federal judges will not hold themselves accountable. Now, I'm wearing Western garb today because it's time that we take the same actions as Wyatt Earp did in the Old West and others, and we enforce the rule of law ourselves. We are trying judges criminally for violating their oath of office. And as far as the House of Representatives, which is supposed to oversee judges, and now you have Jim Jordan with his rolled up sleeves, Mr. Wrestling coach from Ohio State. Oh, we're going to hold everybody accountable in the Judiciary Committee. And held one judge accountable for anything. The judges that are throwing the January 6th protesters in prison, forget it. They don't want to go against the judges because they may have a case against them someday in front of one of these judges that they helped put on the bench, one of their yes men. So forget about impeachment. In 200 and some years, I think it's 240 some years at this point, and counting, we have impeached 8 judges, and most of them for drunkenness and not showing up to work, not because they took bribes, not because of unethical behavior. The one judge that was impeached in the last 20 years, Alice E. Hastings, who's now dead, was impeached for bribery. And what happened then? He claimed, well, it was just because he was black. That's why he was impeached. And then he ran in a black district in Miami, Florida, and became the congressman from that district, where he lived happily ever after until he died recently. This is where we are with judges. So today there's a hearing on Capitol Hill in the Senate. It's being called by Democrats. Of course, they want to beat up on Clarence Thomas. I like Clarence Thomas. He's done a decent job given the fact that, like everybody else, he's politically compromised. He hasn't gone far enough. We've had cases up there dealing with social media and Twitter and Facebook and Apple. He said, oh, it's a great case, but it's not the right time. Well, it was the right time at the time. He bailed out too. But yes, he's the best of the worst up there. That's true. But he took large gifts from someone who obviously was trying to influence him. And that wasn't ethical, to be honest. But let's talk about some other justices up there. Let's talk about Sonia Sotomayor, who sat on a case involving Obamacare when she was Solicitor General in the Obama Justice Department and advocated for it. Clearly conflict of interest. Or the woman who is always lionized by the feminists and the left, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, is corrupt to the core as you could be. Sat on cases where her husband owned large shares of stock in corporations before the Supreme Court. And let's talk about the Chief Justice of the United States, who many people think has been living in a closet all these years and can be blackmailed because of it. His wife, arranged as a headhunter to place lawyers in law firms that appear in front of the Supreme Court. And it is reported that she made tens of millions of dollars. Gorsuch, now it is alleged that he sold a piece of land to someone who had a case in front of the Supreme Court. You can go on and on and on. This is the attitude. These judges take junkets from various special interests. They'll send them to Hawaii for so-called seminars, basically a vacation, to bribe them. And that's fine. Judges said that's not bribery. Many years ago, Justice Scalia, who was a decent justice, but he took money too from donors. And when he was called on the carpet for that, during a case that I was involved in, where I thought he should recuse himself at Judicial Watch, I had left to run for the U.S. Senate and make my views known on that. He appeared in front of the Harvard Law School. He went on a duck hunting trip, okay, with someone who obviously was lining his pockets. And he brazenly and arrogantly, when it was asked a question about that by Harvard law students, just went quack, quack, quack. This is the respect which is paid to the American people by some federal judges, a lot of them, probably most of them. There's some good ones, sure, but they sneak through by accident. How do you get to be a federal judge or a Supreme Court justice? Political campaign contributions, political connections, political campaign contributions being the equivalent of bribery to get someone on the bench. Large law firms, large corporations, large special interests want their yes men on the bench, both at the lower court level and at the higher court level. And this is why in my book, It Takes a Counter-Revolution, Wake Up America, I dedicated to Thomas Jefferson, who was against Article III federal judges and Supreme Court justices. Let the states handle it, he said. Let them be elected, because those who are appointed for life will act in a way that represents themselves or those special interests and will not be accountable to the American people. Jefferson said, federal judges will be no less honest or dishonest than any other man. Of course, they didn't use woman in those days in terms of a reference, but he's referring to both. And in fact, that has proven to be true. And he said they would turn into despots and tyrants, causing us to shed the blood of patriots and tyrants yet again every 20 years or so, adding, what's a few thousand dead to refresh the tree of liberty? That's the natural manure of government. Jefferson did not want to see anybody hurt. He did not want to see anybody dead. Neither do I. But we need a new system. And this is why we are trying these judges. Look at what they're doing in January 6th, getting defendants to get down on their knees, to make forced confessions, throwing them in prison for simply walking into our Capitol, by and large, peacefully. And even a judge I once had respect for, but no longer have any respect for, Royce Lamberth, put the QAnon shaman in jail for 3.5 years, and he was peaceful. And then he told other defendants, oh, you have to obey the established government. That's what George Washington said you had to do. Did George Washington obey the established government, which was King George? Obviously not. That's why we have a nation. The federal judges are there to protect us from the tyranny of the other two branches of government and from ourselves. They have failed us. They represent those who put them on the bench. They become yes men and women, and they think they're above the law. In fact, many cases, they don't even allow to go to juries. They think they get to make the decisions. Well, that's why our founding fathers gave us a jury, because in civil cases in particular, because they didn't trust the judges of the king. And I don't trust the current judges in Washington, D.C. There's not one there that is honest. Every single one of them is either compromised or corrupt on both the lower court and the D.C. circuit. And I've been fighting them for years, and I'm still fighting them. Because I believe in a legal system. I believe in a just legal system. I believe in enforcing the rule of man to the extent that it coincides with the rule of God, with the will of God. If it does not, then no. But Americans need to take action themselves. So go to freedomwatchusa.org, join our Justice League, get my book, It Takes a Counter-Revolution, Wake Up America, read about the judges in the Federal Judicial Hall of Shame. And I've got 20 of them. That's just scratching the surface in my 46 years of being a trial lawyer. Many more are out there that are harming the American people. Want to know why? You can gauge with almost exact certainty how a federal judge is going to rule based upon which president appointed them, because it is not an honest, in any way, recitation, whether you're left, right, or center of what the law says. It is based upon 99% of the time that judge's political ideology and paying back those who put them on the bench. You cannot have a country which is run by political hacks. I've always said we have a Cadillac of a legal system, but we've got drunken drivers at the wheel. And unless we correct this, then we are in a revolutionary mode, which we already are, because we saw what happened with regard to January 6th. It was federal judges in particular who would not even allow President Trump to have a hearing, a bona fide hearing, taking evidence, taking testimony. Supreme Court refused to hear a case that was brought by the Attorney General of Texas, which was a good case. The people saw that as the final straw. They rose up in an uprising, not an insurrection, and they protested in the Capitol. And now we are facing an inquisition by an evil leftist-run government, by a brain-dead president, a criminal, someone who's so stupid he had to bow out of prior presidential races because he stole the work of other people. He plagiarized it. This president is an absolute disgrace. The Democrat Party is evil, and the Republican Party is simply a fundraising, racketeering enterprise to raise money and to acquire power. The American people are unrepresented in all three branches of government, not just in the judicial branch. And it is time to declare independence again, to form a new government, not a new nation, by and for the people, with honest leaders, not the corrupt fools that are currently in charge. And then also to enforce the rule of law through citizens' grand juries, citizens' trials, obtain convictions, obtain sentences, and carry those sentences out through law enforcement and the military. And if they won't do it, then the American people, we need to do it ourselves. Peacefully and legally, we have a right of citizens' arrest. That is in 48 states, and that's man's law. God bless you. Thank you for listening to me. So if you watch this hearing today, yeah, they're going to be beating up on Thomas and they're beating up on Gorsuch, but every single one of those judges on that court, Democrat or Republican appointed, have been compromised, and several of them are corrupt. And that is why people don't have faith in the Supreme Court. They don't have faith in the judiciary. They don't have faith in the legal system, and they certainly don't have faith in our government. So it's time to form a new government. Go to freedomwatchusa.org, contribute with tax-deductible contributions. We need your help. We need to mete out the rule of law ourselves. We do not have a justice system that will do it. God bless you. God save America. I'll be back tomorrow with another special podcast. Until then, remember, the Father and Son will only help us if we help ourselves. We have to adhere to God's law above all else. Thank you for listening to me.